Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Wisconsin Weather Experts, exclusively on Fox Local as well as our Fox 6 YouTube page. It's Tuesday. It's sunny here right now in Milwaukee, but we've had a few showers and storms at times. Could see a few more as the day goes on. Now, unfortunately, we are still covering all of the devastation in Texas. So that's where we're going to start today with just incredible video. This is a time lapse that just really puts into perspective how quickly this particular river flooded and rose thanks to all of that rain. So this is the latest in Texas. The death toll, unfortunately, has surpassed 100 people now as the search continues for more that are still missing. All of this after flash floods devastated the state, as we know. Here you can see how fast the water rose on the Llano River in Texas. It's just 20 minutes. So this is sped up video, but that river rose in 20 minutes, which is just crazy. You can see it quickly surging over the road. It cuts off any transportation and crushes the trees that are by the nearby bank. And if you look closely too on that stretch of roadway at the beginning, you can see those officials and how they just continue to keep moving back and keep moving back because the water just keeps infiltrating that road. You see them drive away, put up the barricades, they come back to check on it. It's even farther up. It's just heartbreaking to see everything that unfolded in Texas.
Yeah, and if you pay attention to the tree that's just sitting there in the middle, it eventually goes under the water. Yeah, and it's just like, all this water came rushing in very fast. Like, it filled up so fast. Like, I don't even know if there's even enough time to really have left if you were there because it moved so fast. I mean, water can sweep you off of your feet just at 6 inches.
Right.
And so we're talking feet here.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's very devastating. And as we even continue with this, I mean, the death toll continues to rise in central Texas after last week's devastating floods. It comes as officials consider possible changes to the state's warning systems. So Fox News' correspondent Rebecca Castor has more from Kirk County in Texas.
As the Guadalupe River recedes here in central Texas, people are getting a first look at some of the damage, while others are still searching for loved ones. Days after water slammed into cabins along the Guadalupe River, the search for the missing continues at Camp Mystic. The all-girls Christian camp lost more than 24 campers and counselors in last week's devastating floods.
We're so grateful and thankful for all the resources that have been provided to us to do this job. You know, and I can assure you we will not stop until this mission is complete.
The flash flooding hit in the early hours of the morning while many were sleeping. One counselor describes the overwhelming emotion and relief when they knew they were safe.
Seeing little girls run to their parents and just like hug them and cry, and also seeing some parents who were looking for their little girls and they weren't there.
As recovery efforts continue, people across Central Texas are beginning to piece together what's left of their neighborhoods. And volunteers from all over are helping comb through the waterlogged debris.
It's that foundation of friends and family and faith. I mean, that's what draws us to help.
Meanwhile, Texas officials are beginning to assess the state's flood warning system. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick says they plan to install sirens along the Guadalupe River before next summer.
Had we had sirens along this area, up and down, it's possible that would have saved some of these lives.
Governor Greg Abbott says the state has activated additional emergency resources and will continue working until every flood victim is found. In Kirk County, Texas, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
The sirens are really interesting too, and I don't know if that's commonplace around rivers down south, if they have sirens. It sounds like such a good idea, but also we know very well that sirens are outdoor warning systems, but it's just one of those things where if in any way it could help alert somebody, do it. So it's nice to hear that now at least we're starting to move forward and try to prevent something like this from happening again.
Yeah, and I'm almost curious too. Like, I know that the group leaders had their phones. You know how like in the middle of the night, sometimes you get like a Amber Alert or something. I'm almost curious if that happened with their phones, where they were able to get some type of notification of some sort, even if it wasn't a siren, where the entire camp could hear it.
Yeah.
That's like one of my curiosities. But again, like I am very glad that they're starting to make some type of improvements, because this has happened in the past where that same area has flooded. So it's good now that they're going to be making improvements moving forward. So whenever they rebuild all of this for other families that may want to go camping, they'll at least know.
Yeah, and our hearts just go out to everybody who's being impacted by this, absolutely. Now, operators at Camp Mystic, as you've heard, of course, that is that all-girls Christian camp, said that they lost more than 24 campers and counselors after the water slammed into cabins along the Guadalupe River. One father shared his feelings when he picked up his daughter from a nearby camp.
It was just sad enough, leaving her there for a month. And some of them just dropped them off, and they ain't seeing them for the rest of their lives.
You'd have to imagine that's how, you know, all those parents are feeling. And while flash flooding, like we saw in Texas, isn't the #1 concern here locally, the safety of campers is still, of course, top priority for any camp here in Wisconsin or anywhere across the United States. Now, Fox's Emily Matesic gives us a closer look at how one Wisconsin camp works to keep everybody safe.
Campion Elia in Oconto County has about 160 campers, plus 36 staff members on site this week. The Texas tragedy not far from the minds of staff members as they assess their surroundings here.
We're not on the side of a river. It's not like our banks are going to rise in an hour, but we do have crazy weather. What if we had a bear come through? Like, that's still an emergency that we need to plan for.
Both staff and campers regularly running through different scenarios to keep everyone safe.
We practice weekly storm drills. We practice all camp gatherings. We practice intruder drills and protocols. We go over training for like a violent intruder too, fire, all of those different things.
It's practice that came in handy back in 2019. That's when a microburst from a summer storm hit the camp.
About 9 o'clock that thing rolled in, and I mean, when that wind hit, the trees, they bent to 45-degree angle and started falling down.
The storm toppled about 3,000 trees and blocked roads in and around the camp. And while no campers were on site that night, staff members were, seeking shelter indoors, leading to no injuries. The incident, a good learning experience, leading to safety upgrades on site.
We started building, as we build new cabins, there are storm basements in there immediate. They can go right down into those areas. We backed up every area, and every well in our camp is now backed up by natural gas generators, so that if power goes out, our facility kicks back on.
Even before a storm hits, precautions are taken to get campers and staff close to shelter that they can access quickly if needed. Weather conditions are constantly being monitored, communication is key, and any threatening or dangerous situation is quickly shared camp-wide to keep everyone safe. In Surrey, Emily Matesic, Fox 11 News.
All right, and in response to the devastating and deadly flooding, the American Red Cross released a statement saying, "Our hearts are heavy as we witness the devastating impact of the recent floods in Texas. We stand with the affected communities during this difficult time."
And believe it or not, there's another spot across the country that has been dealing with flooding from something different, though, more so the remnants of a tropical storm, and that's parts of North Carolina. This is video from North Carolina recovering from what was Tropical Storm Chantal that triggered flooding and forced dozens of people to evacuate parts of the state over the weekend. Now, at least one person has died, unfortunately, and 100 people were rescued. The Eno River hit major flood stage after rising 24 feet in less than 12 hours. Some folks said more than 5 feet of water rushed into their homes. Now, thankfully, water levels are in the process of receding. That storm is out of the Carolinas, so they will be hopefully recovering from this in the coming days. But as we all know, it does still take some time for any body of water to recede and all of that flooding to recede. But hopefully just more and more improvements in the days to come.
I know, and our hearts continue to go out to everybody that's affected by flooding, just in general across the country. Yes. But Steph, give us some good news with the weather, please.
I know. It's been a rough one, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Of course, the past couple of days, really since the 4th of July. But yeah, let's dive into our regional weather. Now here locally, we have our own system, though it's not really causing any problems. We have just a chance for some spotty showers and storms from time to time today. Everybody out west enjoying some quiet weather, aside from a low pressure system that's just now coming onshore to the Pacific Northwest. Still have a stationary boundary out east, bringing some, once again, spotty showers and thunderstorms to New England states, as well as down the East Coast. And you can still see down to about the Gulf Coast, still some showers and thunderstorms too. So starting in our area, north of the Milwaukee area, just a few showers, and then down south into Illinois, a couple of showers. No warnings, no thunderstorms. It's pretty much all just rain, so some brief downpours will be a possibility today. Down south, a little bit more active. You can see southern Illinois, really right along the Mississippi, and then over into northwestern parts of Arkansas. More thunderstorm activity, and then down towards the south, you can see New Orleans and a good part of Louisiana over to Houston, now starting to see thunderstorms developing. So a little more unsettled across central parts of the U.S. as well as towards the East Coast. Now there is a little bit of a severe threat along the East Coast today. You can see just south of New York City a slight risk, and then south of us we have a marginal risk for strong to severe thunderstorm across the central and southern plains, and just north into northern Wisconsin and the UP. That's a new little addition there. A tiny little marginal risk just north of us for, again, just an isolated strong to severe thunderstorm. Wednesday, there are still 2 separate areas of marginal risk. Here locally, we're actually going to dry out and see sunshine on Wednesday, and same with Thursday. Notice west of us Thursday, though, there is also a slight risk in marginal. We'll watch Friday because our thunderstorm chance returns late in the week, and it's very possible we end up seeing that severe threat inching its way eastward from what we see there on Thursday. Back to today. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. It is only Tuesday. You can see in southern parts of the state and then up towards the north, just 2 separate spots of some spotty showers and thunderstorms, especially late afternoon into our dinner hour. But really all the way through about midnight, we could still see a few pop-ups from time to time. Clouds and maybe some fog Wednesday morning. You can see just how quickly all of that clears out. So sunshine the rest of Wednesday statewide. You can see west of us Thursday, some thunderstorms, but here locally, most of us are looking at another partly sunny day. Thunderstorms all around us on Thursday, but we see those returning to our area as we end the week on Friday. One difference from yesterday is that the heat is really building across the U.S. We actually had some pleasant air, especially across the upper plains and the Great Lakes region. Yesterday, you can still see plenty of 90s and decent heat out east. And then also out west, look at places like Salt Lake City, El Paso, Phoenix, triple-digit high temperatures today, and even the Dakotas down to Denver and Dallas, high temperatures in the 90s. So much hotter today compared to what we experienced yesterday. You can see out west a handful of heat advisories, the East Coast a handful of heat advisories. This is where heat indices out east could actually peak at about 107, 108 degrees. So the heat is on across the U.S. Here locally, it's kind of split. High temperatures down across more so the southern half of Wisconsin down to about Chicago will be a little hotter. Up north, upper 70s to around 80. Dew points are also in the process of climbing too. Now that we've got that warm front passing through our area as we speak, it is still going to be a muggier afternoon and a warmer afternoon in general. So feeling a little different compared to what we experienced yesterday when it was actually a little cooler than average. So dew points will drop the Wednesday, Thursday as a cold front passes later on tonight, just to climb again to end the week and start the weekend. But by Sunday, that humidity begins to drop. Even though air temperatures may be a little bit warmer on Sunday, dew points will begin to drop. And speaking of temperatures, lake breeze is going to keep us a little cooler Wednesday, Thursday. So those 80s are more so for inland areas, but we all then climb into the 80s throughout Friday and throughout the weekend. Sunday looking to be the warmest with those high temperatures, potentially in the mid-80s across the area, but sunshine looks to return as well. That's the latest look at your regional weather. Let's take a live look outside right now where we are still enjoying some sunshine. We will take it. We have plenty to talk about still on Wisconsin Weather Experts, including a spot out east that dealt with sharks over the weekend. Stick around.
welcome back to Wisconsin Weather Experts. Whether you're tuning in on our Fox Local here or if you're tuning in from YouTube, we have a lot more to talk about, some more interesting things as well. We're talking about some dew points and even some sharks later on in this segment.
Stick around for that in a place you probably wouldn't think that they would be located. But first, we're getting to that time of year. We've already dealt with high humidity so many times this summer, and it's important to look at dew points, of course, when we do our forecasting to talk about the muggy meter, but also important to know the difference between dew points and relative humidity. Meteorologist Tom Walks has the latest on that.
Well, you often hear us talk about dew point, and sometimes you hear us talk about relative humidity. What do they mean? What's the difference between the two? Well, first, let me show you dew points. Now, dew points look somewhat similar to air temperatures because they're both measured the same way, in degrees. So when we are reporting this on the news, you are looking at a dew point, which is degrees Fahrenheit. Typically, when you get above 60 degrees in the dew point department, that's when it starts to feel a bit humid outside, a little bit more tropical. If you get above 70, oh, it really starts to feel tropical outside. So that's the dew point, kind of a humidity gauge, if you will. There's a whole lot of science in association with the dew point as well, but just from a practical standpoint, it's a humidity gauge. Now, relative humidity, you would think to yourself, oh, well, this is how it feels like, right? If the relative humidity is 80%, it must be really humid, right? But if the relative humidity is 40%, well, there's probably not much humidity in the air. That is incorrect. And that is why we typically never talk about relative humidity on the air. Let's dive deeper into this here. So dew point, as I mentioned, it's a measure of moisture. You use it as a humidity gauge. Again, when the number is above 60, you know it really starts to feel humid. When it gets above 70, it really starts to get tropical. Relative humidity, however, is different. Relative humidity is how much water is currently in the air now versus how much water the air can hold at the current temperature. So think about that for a minute. Relative humidity is indeed relative, right? It's relative to the current air temperature. So think about this for a second. In the morning, relative humidity levels are typically at their highest. Why is that? Because the air temperature is at its coolest, right? So the temperature is, in effect, closer to the dew point, making the relative humidity higher. Now consider this scenario. It's a summertime day. It's 90, 95 degrees outside, and the dew point is 60 or 65. Well, the relative humidity is not going to look very high on a relative humidity map percentage-wise because it is relative to that 90-degree temperature. Does that make sense? So it may feel extremely humid, but you're saying, well, why does the relative humidity only read 40% when I'm basically sweating like crazy walking outside? It's because the relative humidity is just that. It is relative to the current air temperature. Now, dew point, on the other hand, just to go back to that quickly, yes, that is number one, the point at which dew forms. So it's called the dew point. So in the morning hours, temperature cools to the dew point. The air can't hold any more water, so it condenses out into tiny water droplets known as dew on the ground. That's also the case when you have fog, when the air temperature and the dew point are equal, so the air can't hold any more water, so it forms a stratus cloud on the ground known as fog. Relative humidity from an operational standpoint, so as meteorologists, we really use relative humidity for wildfire forecasting. When it gets so dry, especially relative humidities of 25% or below, that's when wildfire danger really becomes an issue. So you look at relative humidity, you look at what the current drought conditions are and wind conditions. All of those really come together to produce some intense wildfire type days, potentially, if everything comes together. So that's what we use relative humidity for. Dew point, you want to use that for everything else. How humid it feels outside. I haven't touched too much on the science of dew point in terms of from a forecasting standpoint, but when you get the really humid air in place, dew points above 60, that now you're in thunderstorm range, if you will, for lower cloud heights, which that can impact tornadic type weather and things like that. So there's so much more to dive into at a later date with dew point. But again, just what you need to know right now, use dew point for everything. Unless you are looking at a wildfire type situation or a grass fire situation, dew point is where you want to go. Tell your friends, tell your family, the higher the dew point, the more humid it feels. But don't look at relative humidity. Again, it can be very confusing and quite misleading unless you're talking about wildfires.
He's such a good teacher.
Yes, don't look at the relative humidity, folks, okay?
Dew points for everything.
Yes, dew points for everything. And as we move forward, I mean, we're going to kind of get to more of that dew point weather, I guess you could say, for the beach, as we talk about the beach here. But to escape the heat and humidity, a lot of folks will be hitting the beaches across the country. But one beach had a bit of a shock over the long weekend. Rockaway Beach goers got the surprise of a lifetime when they were notified they were swimming near sharks. Multiple sharks were spotted for 4 straight days. I'm talking early Thursday afternoon, Friday morning, Saturday evening, and Sunday afternoon.
Wow.
NYPD drone video shows swimmers just 100 feet away from a shark in the water. Look at that. Wow. That's kind of scary. So that was near beach 113th Street. Some beachgoers said the news of the sharks made them want to stay away from the shoreline, while others seemed to not let it ruin their July 4th weekend plans.
We only live once, and I don't, want it to be taken by a shark. I don't get far enough for them to catch me.
Between the dirty water and the sharks, and I choose sand.
Yes.
Every time.
Yes, same.
Same. I have to agree with the girl there. So the director of the Shark Research and Conservation Program at the University of Miami says anytime you are swimming at the beach, a shark is probably not too far away. But the beaches were closed for a period of time after all of these sightings in New York. And Steph, I don't know about you, but once I hear that there's a shark, I pack up and leave the beach at that point.
Yes, I will stay in the sand.
Yeah,
absolutely. So there you go, your PSA. Just be careful, even if you're in Queens, New York.
Right.
Be careful of those sharks. Let's take a quick live look outside right now. We've got just a little bit more coming up on Wisconsin Weather Experts. Stay with us. All right, finally today, take a look at this. A rare and colorful weather phenomenon caught on camera from space by a NASA astronaut. She was aboard the International Space Station. It's called a sprite, which is an electrical discharge high above the clouds. So cool. Now, these are very difficult to see from the ground. Rumors of their existence began swirling in the mid-1800s, but in 1989, a group of scientists from the University of Minnesota captured the first image of a sprite. It happened by accident while researching something else with a slow motion camera. So there you go. Not the soda. We're not talking about the soda here. This is a really cool view from space. So the more you know. Thanks for staying with us today on Wisconsin Weather Experts. We will see you right back here tomorrow at noon.